Hi, book club members. I'm Jen.
And I'm Carrie.
And this is Warhammer 40k Book Club, where we read from a crag. This is episode number 133, and our book is The Dawn of Fire, Hand of Abaddon. The penultimate, they really enjoy saying that, penultimate addition or entry into the Dawn of Fire series.
It's prettier than saying second to last.
We're almost there. We posted several questions on our website, WH40kbookclub.com, and we encourage participation in our conversations via YouTube, our site, or Encrypted Box channel. Spoiler alert. If you haven't yet read the book, definitely check it out, then come back to this episode, as we're going to be discussing it from start to finish in great detail. Not with this book. We have a lot of thoughts going into this book. With that, let's dive in. Carrie, did you like the book?
That's not an easy answer. So I didn't hate it. And I think Nick Kyme had a giant mess to work with. And I think he did a decent job of pulling together all of the strings that everyone decided to throw out there. And apparently, like, meetings were had, and they're like, we don't like this idea, so we're going to do this. Or I'm bringing in this character. I'm bringing in this character. Now, granted, he caused some of this with Iron Kingdom, so I don't feel too sorry for him. Because I still think that book was a waste of time. Yes, even with the characters in this book, I still think Iron Kingdom was a waste of time. But I think he did the best he could with what he had, and I didn't hate it. I don't like the series. This did not make me like the series anymore, but I didn't hate it.
I have very complex feelings on this book. I would say that overall I agree with everything that you said. And we're going to talk a lot about what Nick Kyme did with this book. I think there was a lot going on. Now, I know that Nick Kyme does not listen to our podcast. But
I feel like he does.
I feel like he low-key does. And if you happen to be listening to this podcast, do not disabuse us of this notion. The mystery is part of the delight of it. So many of the things that we have talked about this series, he addressed in this book. And I will tell you that for like the first half of the book, I was like, oh, actually not even the first half, maybe like the first 7-8 chapters, I was like, oh, damn. Oh, that's how this is weaving into this. Oh, I see now. Oh, okay, that's how this is playing into this. I think he did a really good job with that. And again, I do not envy him the task he had before him. Now, some parts of this book I greatly liked, and some parts I really, really enjoyed, and other parts less so. So I'm with you. It's a very mixed feeling about this book.
So there's two reasons why I think he listens to this podcast. The first was the Ring of Bucharest got mentioned very early on and tossed aside. Explained why it's been tossed aside. I was like, oh, dang. Okay. Wow. Does he listen? The next thing was when they were talking about the events of Iron Kingdom, and Kesh was remembering about how awful it was, the war that happened because of the queen and her grief. And I was like, we said this all happened because she was sad. He listens to us. He just chose a more eloquent way of phrasing it and saying because she was sad.
Well, I think, and we'll talk about this in a second. So let's start on the positive notes here, and before we start getting really metaphysical or
I got
meta
some good
commentary,
quotes.
And I left my quotes on the other side of the room.
Well, don't you just suck? So
I do actually.
The one that I wrote down like immediately, like as in I put down the book to immediately go hunt down my journals like I write in this. It was when Tenebris was talking to Yang, and she was talking about, what her purpose is supposed to be and blah, blah, blah. And, you do all this and you do all that to be part of this. And he's like, you don't understand. Well, he told her, he's like, we are all servants here. And she's like, but you're not because of this. He goes, you don't understand. I strive to be a servant, not a slave. I was like, dang, that's 100% exactly what it is with the dark gods, right? Or even dealing with Abaddon.
Mm-hmm.
You're never in charge. You're either a servant or a slave. And I feel like that's how everybody was throughout this whole book. Even Yang at the end, is she a servant or a slave? I'm going to say she's still a slave. I know we're going to talk about it, but
yeah, I think you're absolutely correct. And I also think that Yang, and we're going to talk more about this in a minute, but I feel like when I ended the book, my thought with Yang was, be careful what you wish for. You
right.
might get it. And again, we'll talk more about that in a second. I liked that quote. There were actually several things that I really enjoyed in this book. When Nick Kyme, and I've always said this, when he's feeling it and he's in a groove and he has a great idea, his writing is excellent and I love it.
Knights of Macragge.
Knights of Macragge is a really great example. I would actually say almost all of Serenial's chapters, Kesh's chapters.
Oh, yes, Kesh's chapters for sure.
Y'all, this kills me to say, but even large swathes, as the audiobook says, of Rostov's stuff and Grail Herrick. The Grail Herrick chapters, whether you like him or not, that writing was excellent. Mostly because I have a weird affinity for Kurgos. But it felt like there were so many little scenes. My favorite, and I don't have the page written down here now. Oh, was it like 130? Hold on. Dang it, now I gotta go and find it. I think it was 130. I was like really good and I wrote down notes and then I left the notebook on the other side of the room. It's been a really long week, you guys. Yes. So I can't really find one quote out of here, but it's the entire section. It's on pages 130 through, it's actually more 129 to 131. It's when Kesh is talking with Falden. And Falden is explaining to her the value of, first off, when he tells her, he's like, look, you are a guardsman. And then he talks about why he is elevating her. And when he said, because she mentions that she thinks that Munster would be a more appropriate. And he says, he will serve you well, and I have spoken to him already of your promotion. He can lead. You, Kesh, you inspire. As an Imperial commander, I use every advantage to my disposal.
Yeah.
I really liked how pragmatic he was. I liked that he looked at this challenge of having this saint-like figure in his, at the time, right? They don't know yet. Having this figure who is definitely surrounded by miracles, and he's like, I can use that. And not in a gross, weird way, just in a, we're in a tough fight, and there's a use for you. Loved that. I thought that was great. I thought their whole conversation was excellent.
Oh, yeah. I mean, just basically, it's like, I don't know if you are or not, but we're going to use you like another cog in the machine. But you're like the shiniest cog we have. So
The shiniest of shiny cogs. Yes, I would absolutely agree with that.
Going back to like some of the best things. So the scene when they're in the tunnels and it's collapsing.
Oh my God.
That was so well written.
So well written.
It reminded me of, when Kato Sakaris and when they were trapped in the warp and they're trying to catch that navigator and that horror of just like the sound stuff. He made me feel like I was suffocating while reading it, which is like, I was finding myself trying to breathe faster because like I was having difficulties, and that's a sign of very masterful writing. I'm just taking a big breath right there, just, remembering it. But
I think most people, the lizard part of your brain is terrified of being buried alive.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, I'm claustrophobic a little bit anyway. So that whole idea is just like, I would probably be one of the people attacking somebody else, just trying to get away.
When they talked, the discomfort started for me when they first started talking about like feeling the god machines walking above them and like the ground shit. Y'all underground. No, just no. I was not for the mining life. Um, that. Anyways, yes,
Like
I agree with you. That
I even
whole
hate,
scene.
I hate parking in underground garages. They make me super nervous.
Same, same. Not a big fan of it. So just reading this description was an excellent scene. Absolutely excellent scene. The scene in which she kills the Chaos Marine too. I like when she says, and I can't remember how he words it, but it's something like she doesn't know where the phrase came from, but where she says, "Let me be your instrument." Oh man, the description of like the axe burning her, everything. Like, oh my god. So this is where Kyme deserves all of the credit and all of the praise. I went from really not liking that this character was still alive and around.
Oh, we've both bitched about it. Like, we said that's what killed the ending of Gate of Bones. Gate of Bones would have been like the best book in a long time until she came back.
Exactly that. And now I love her. So, well done, sir. Well done.
I'd also like to say that's because he listens to us, because we complained about that a lot. And he was just like, I will find a way to make it make sense why she's still alive.
Damn you.
Yeah, jerk.
Yeah, seriously. So, Kyme, he introduces a few little nuggets in this book. Which were your favorites?
Like what?
So, a good example would be, well, one thing that I really liked was him mentioning that, like, the sisters they're established now. Solemnus is on Luna. That's established. That's cooking along. Greyfax is on the chessboard. The kin. We're gonna talk a little bit more about the kin in a second. Actually, we'll just ask it here. Did the kin need to be added to the Dawn of Fire series? Was this necessary?
No. This was shoehorned in so badly. Shoehorned in as badly as that Fenrisian shipmistress.
I feel
when she appeared, I was like, God damn it, I'm never getting away from this bitch.
We're going to talk about that in a second, because there's a lot to be said there. With the kin, I feel like, so going back to, and we'll talk more about this in a sec with Nick Kyme, like him trying to lace together all of the threads of this series.
The kin I felt so unnecessary. Like, it was just another thing.
It felt unnecessary.
It was another thing you didn't need to add in with everything else you were already trying to pull in from the different books.
I agree with that 100%. But I do feel like in his cleanup, someone, and maybe it was him, was like, oh, man, what are the Votan doing during all of this? Shouldn't they be in the Dawn of Fire? Like, I feel like he was like, oh, man, I got to wrap these guys in somehow, too. I did not like that. I did love Greyfax. I absolutely loved that he not necessarily wove her in, because I would say she's not even really part of this narrative. She's not a main part of it. The idea that he establishes that, oh, yeah, by the way, she's operating, she's doing things, she is now a major player, because we haven't, in the Black Library, we haven't really seen her since she gets thrown out of one of Trazen's Pokeballs.
Right.
So I liked that.
I feel like that book wasn't that long ago either, so.
No, but she's been in the Skywatcher Adept, keep me honest here. She's been in the campaign for a long time.
Right.
So, time. I agree with you there, like, in terms of timelines, but, like, man, if you think about the timeline of when Cadia falls to when this happens, like, what has she been doing? Apparently a lot is the answer to that question. Here for it.
I am here for it. Like, I was happy to see her.
All right, let's talk through this. One of our constant complaints has been the disparate threads throughout the Dawn of Fire. Does he effectively wrap them all up?
I would say yes.
I would agree with you. I think the Ring of Bucharest, as they say on the audiobook, I would say the Ring of Bucharest was my one that I was like, really? Really?
At least it wasn't one of the shards.
Anyway, I can't right now with that, but we'll get there. Um, I have had such a. I would like to know why. I I appreciate that he acknowledged that he's like, yeah, we. No, that didn't really pan out. Oh, okay. Why? From a meta commentary side, why? Why did we introduce this just to then?
Well,
Why?
uh, maybe to show that the Hand of Abaddon isn't in full control.
That could be. Also, that it, I guess you could, a charitable read on it would be that there is a little bit of a desperation there, right? Of like, oh,
Right.
let's go get that. Ugh, that's not going to serve what we need to do here. Dang it. Um, they're not infallible. They don't have all of the plans, right? Um, I liked that, but
I
let's
do
talk a
have
little bit more.
I have some questions of how they
Ooh,
got some of the shards. Not enough to want a book on it because I don't care that much. But one of the shards I know was with all person. God, Abnet, like you're the worst. You're just the worst. All person. You're awful. Anyway, and he took it to escape Calth with a bunch of people, just cut through space and time and just went on his merry way. And they just kind of let him, he was being chased and then they kind of let him go because he ended up being like, I don't know where we are or what time we're in, but this is where we stay. I'm like, okay, how did y'all get that one? Very curious about that. Again, not enough to have a book on it. I don't care that much.
I would agree with that too. At this point, I was kind of like, sure,
So
you have all
I
the shards
also,
there
I guess
before.
I wasn't aware. I don't know. This might have been mentioned in a campaign or something that one of the Athames was what Fulgrim used to slice Gulliman. I did not know that. So I don't know if that was always the case or that was just a little tidbit that they threw in there. And if it was,
No, that was.
and if it was always the case, how did y'all get that back from Fulgrim? Because that doesn't sound like something he would let go of.
Oh, wait a minute, wait a minute. Wasn't that in the first Dark Imperium book? Remember, there's that book. There's a story where we see when Fulgrim stabs him, and I think they mention that.
Okay, okay, it's been a very, very long
That's
time
fair.
since
That's
I
fair.
read that. I remember the reading about him getting stabbed. I guess I didn't remember. You know what? Also, to be fair, even if it was the Athame, I hadn't started reading the Horus Heresy yet. I wouldn't have understood what that was referencing. But okay, how did they get that one from Fulgrim? Just go like, please, sir, can we have it? That
No.
sounds like something he'd be like, sure, have this extremely powerful knife that I used to slash my brother with. No. Again, not enough to ask for like even a collection of short stories for how the hand got the shards. Don't care that much. But it just seems like there's a lot of, well, they just got them. Which, okay,
Yeah.
fine.
So that they can make the anatheme, which we're going to talk about in a second. But
you know,
I'm with you that I was
from
like,
the Erebus took and started the whole Horus Heresy in the first place.
right.
I love how
right.
they're like, this is what ascended Horus. I'm like, you mean that's what destroyed him?
Well, and then when they talk about it piercing his side, I was like, man, this weapon needs to choose a lane. Like, is it on Chaos' side? Is it not on Chaos' side? The fact that, again, we're going to talk more about the anatheme in a second, but yeah, I'm with you. Like, oh, you guys have all the, I definitely, because you've read the Horus Heresy much more recently than I have and more of it. Sure. The shards of Erebus are all over the place. Great. Love it. I both do and don't care. Like, we
Did
have all the
Corfarin
shards.
get rid of
Cool.
his? He might have actually just been like, this
He
is
might have,
Erebus's.
to be fair.
I don't want it.
To be fair, or given it to the hand because somebody owed him a favor or something like that. Like, yeah, okay, great. So they're going for the anatheme. It's not the ring of Bucharest. It's the anatheme. Great, cool, great. I didn't necessarily see that like everyone had a part to play in that. So like Grail Herrick, for example. That's a good example of a plot thread that up until the end, I will say,
I was like, what's the point of him being here? Until the end.
I'm so torn on that narrative. I'm so torn on that narrative because I love him and I like his character. I really like Burgos.
All right, so shocking to everybody, I did not like the Red Corsairs because, I mean, oh no, Carrie doesn't like a traitor legion. We're all in shock.
Fair.
And the whole time I was like, seriously, I know you were mentioned in Iron Kingdom, and I know Nick Kyme often has an affinity for, well, I mentioned this in this one book, so of course I'm going to bring him along. And that's really what I thought this was. I like this guy. I'm going to bring him along just because. And, you know, when there's whole stories like, why is this here? Why is this here? This would be even before I talked to you over the weekend. I was thinking that this would be so much better if there's a Red Corsairs book. And this explains like what happened to him after Iron Kingdom. That would have been fine. But the whole time I was like, I don't get this. I don't get this. This is so boring. I don't like anything of this. I don't see what the point of it is. Like the whole thing with the Fate Weaver, like what was the point of all of that? And then the very end, oh, he was the one with the shards. Mm-hmm. You son of a bitch. Did not see that coming. Hats off to you, sir.
You know what? I will actually agree with you on that, where I did not see that coming. I especially did not see his ending. And that is something that I'm with you. Like I even like those characters. And through like the first 3/4 of the book, I was like, and so like, I thought they needed to be their own story as well. And then, nope, turns out that he is, he's a really big part of this entire thing. Like a really big place, a really big part of it.
Mm-hmm.
Although I feel like the fact that he had anyways, poor guy is all I can say to that.
I like they couldn't put them all in a briefcase and handcuff it to somebody. No, they just had to, insert it into someone. Because chaos.
I mean, let's be real. It kind of probably added some more power to it and made it more better. I think that you would feel that more, right? Like, ooh, it's uncomfortable. Anyways.
To breathe, to move.
Right. Yeah, pretty much. Okay, so then we have Rostov. We have Rostov and Hellventer. When you told me, so this is a really funny story from this weekend, Carrie texted me and she's like, chapter 28, I hate this book even more. And I wasn't there yet. I was a few chapters behind. And my first thought was, oh God, I bet you it's the Hellventer lady. She shows back up. Sure enough. It was the Hellventer lady. They're off together. Do they weave their stories together well?
God, I don't care.
Fair.
I mean, he even, I think, did like a little wink, wink, nod, nod thing when she was telling Rostov, she's like, I do have a goatee on board that is really skilled in warp arts. I'm like, yeah, she is. A little bit heretical. Actually, you may not want to share that with the Lord Inquisitor here. Just throwing that out there. But, yeah, I mean,
necromancer, call it what you will.
Right. Potato.
We've all engaged in a little necromancy from time to time.
Right. Yes. Totally. Yeah, totally makes sense. I guess I really wish they would stop trying to make her a thing. She should have stayed dead after Rogue Trader. And then, you know what I would have liked even more? If not only did she stay dead, but they accidentally found her daughter and the Rogue Trader's son lost in space. That would have been fine with me.
That would have been fine with me. I actually would have been okay with that. Like, I thought the whole idea of that book, and again, I know we've talked about this before, but I felt like the whole idea of that book was that, oh, look at this like powerful rogue trader. Oh, damn, she's dead. I guess her daughter's gonna have to step up to the plate. And no, not really though. Actually, we're gonna lose the daughter and we're gonna keep the mom. Why? I don't know. I'm with you. I don't really have words for why I don't like this character, but I don't. And as soon as she showed up, I was like, oh my God, I don't even care. Like,
Honestly, I was
her
fine
whole-
with her until they brought her back to life. I'm just like, no.
yeah.
It's like Kesh, right? No.
And this book did
And this
not
is-
give me that, oh, that's why she's still, no.
No, and Hellventer's even worse than Kesh, because at least Kesh like came out and they're like, we have no idea how we survived. We know how Hellventer came back to life, and it literally came back to life, and not cool, bro.
No.
And I hate to
No.
say it, even the Space Wolves, your Sky Warriors, would not approve of these methods.
Not approved. Exactly.
And I guess the other thing I don't like about her is that she's such a Space Wolf wannabe.
It does kind of feel like they were like, oh, we can't put a space wolf in here. But wait. I don't, and look, I'm fine. I'm fine. I would be, if the daughter had been the main character, because she was Fenrisian, not Space Wolfian.
Right.
Hellventer is Space Wolfian, not Fenrisian. And I know that seems like I'm splitting hairs, but
No,
I promise I feel
you're
like
really
I'm
not.
I feel like, and look, it's okay. I get it. All of the people from a death world, they have a way about them, right? When we read The Emperor's Gift, that Inquisitor was Fenrisian. She had a way about her.
But she wasn't
from Fenris.
but she wasn't a Space Wolf wannabe.
Yes, agreed with that entirely. And so I just, that was a character that oh man, you could have left her on the cutting room floor. I felt so bad because I was reading so many parts of this book and was like, oh, thanks. I hate it. Like, I'm so glad that you've woven everything together and maybe, you know what, just drop those pieces. We can just, we don't need these pieces on the bottom here. Just leave those on the cutting room floor.
We could have had,
especially with her,
any other rogue trader.
Literally any other rogue
trader.
Hell, it could have even been the boy from that. Again, the kids could have shown up. The kids from Rogue Trader could have shown up and been like, ta-da.
They could have been
attracted. And I would have been like,
they could have gotten out of space because of the Blackstone Fortress. Perfect.
Do you remember when Blackstone Fortresses were super rare? Anyway,
Nuh-uh.
Pepperidge Farms remembers. There's like...
They're a dime a dozen.
Apparently, yes. Like, everybody's got a Blackstone Fortress. Additionally, I have questions about that Blackstone Fortress. Okay, I have questions. Because after reading the Blackstone Fortress
so
book,
you can't ask them.
But I want to. Like, again, I have questions. Nothing that happened to her. Well, okay, actually, now that I say that, I think I'm doing a lot of inference from the Blackstone Fortress books. Kind of got the impression that the Blackstone Fortresses were like, yeah, we're really not about this chaos shit. We're really not about anybody being in the fortress. We don't like anybody in the fortress, but we really don't like chaos. So the fact that it was like, nah, Yang's cool though. She's our homie. It was like, ugh. Anyways.
Well, okay, but I have a question about that. It wanted to be free, right?
It did want to be free.
And I think it knew partially. It knew that she also wanted to be free, so it might have found a kindred spirit in her.
You know
but
what? That
I
could
also
be.
wonder how much of that was Augury's manipulation.
100%. That could absolutely
Which
be
is
a
why I
thing.
wonder, is Yang a servant or a slave?
We're going to talk a bit about her in a sec.
And
I just have to get
Nick,
one last thing out.
I have to say, like, that line, that's going to stick with me for a long time when it comes to dealing with chaos. Are you a servant or a slave?
Yeah. It is.
Because that's actually one of the things that Iskander Kane ponders on a lot in the Black Legion books. So,
Yeah, very much. And that's one of the things of like, We've seen that in Graham McNeil's Iron Warriors books. We saw that a
Yeah.
little bit with
Yep.
some of the Night Lords of you can use chaos.
But you can't serve
Do
it.
not, do not be a slave to it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, that whole concept I really do love. I forgot to mention one of the parts that stood out to me that has me pissed off is that he mentions that people can't see the Sisters of Silence, and I just hate it so much. Anyways, moving on. Let's talk about Yang.
No, we're going to have to talk about the Sisters of Silence because there's one aspect of this that pissed me off to no end.
Tell me.
The limiter cuff.
Okay, I feel like we have got an entire TED talk about this on other episodes. Every time it shows up, you and I both have absolute rage because the whole thing, and I think I remember talking about this in Penitent, soul on, soul off, soul on, soul off. I have a soul, I don't have a soul. I have a soul, I don't. Pick a lane. Either you are a blunter because you were born without a soul and ergo you have no connection to the warp. Or, stepping out on a limb here, you do have a soul and there's just something psychic going on with you. That whole limiter cuff is based off the goddamn mutant restrictor collars and you will never convince me otherwise. And it makes sense for the mutants.
Well, yes. Yes.
That's not a soul thing.
Because it's about powers, right? So that makes 100% sense. In case you guys can't follow, we're talking about the X-Men. But the thing that made me the maddest about this is like, so she has the limiter cuff on, right? So soul on, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
And yet they all complain about how they can't see her and they don't like her presence. I'm like, first of all, you either can't see her or you don't like her presence. You guys, you can't like pick a lane. Second of all, if the limiter cuff is on and therefore the soul is now on, shouldn't you be able to see her and shouldn't you feel things just fine? And the other thing I'm curious about, with Rostov's disease, with it being warp-based, wouldn't her not having a soul be a soothing thing because it would cancel the warp?
You would think so, but see, okay. All right, first off, when it comes to limiter cuffs, Nick Kyme probably handled it the best I've seen so far because it was a limiter cuff. Like, I almost imagined it like she turns it on and it felt like maybe a force field popped around her where it's like, oh, I still do not like that, but it's a little bit more tolerable. Like putting on a wetsuit before going into the ocean.
Okay, fine.
Right? Where you're like, okay, but let's not get too carried away. Because Dan Abnett completely broke them in the Penitent books. They're somewhere up here. I think they're right here in these black ones. Broke them in the Penitent books because if you recall when she would turn it on, then suddenly psychers could talk to her and people could see her and they had no problems being around her. But I am 100% with you on the idea that they can't see her, but they also recognize that they don't like her presence. Like, and then like sometimes they could half see her like a ghost, like out of the corner of their eyes. You guys.
The Sisters of Silence were never recorded that way. Literally never. And
pre-Siege of Terra, which is apparently where this shit gets introduced. Pre-Siege of Terra, they were just people.
I read, in case you guys didn't realize, I've read all 54 books of the Horus Heresy of the last 3 years. All 54. Trust me, I would have remembered the few times the Sisters of Silence are brought up. I would have remembered they discussed that they couldn't see them. They're actually very important that you could see them. They had a very commanding presence. Or like a Watchers of the Throne. Right? When the demons came and the Grey Knights came out and the Sisters of Silence came and they were like, ah, oh, dang it. But it's cool. We need you. That's cool. They could still see them. It wasn't like they were going, oh my God, what is that around here? No, there was never a question if we could see them.
Again, Penitent establishes that when she's soul off, she just moves through the crowd and nobody sees her. Literally nobody sees her. She's invisible, which if that is true, why would anybody like so many questions about that I'm not going to deep dive into right now.
The only thing I can give Dana Abnett a little bit of grace on with that is not that they can't see. Okay, just bear with me here. not that they can't see her, but it's because she doesn't have a soul, and so therefore, like, they would want to avoid her. They wouldn't know what they were avoiding. It's just she could slip in and out. So they were just
okay,
like,
you could be right. I would have to go back and read the book, but I remember at the time.
yeah, you're not going to do that.
I'm not going to, because they said that she just slipped through the crowd because people couldn't see her. That I did not like. And the fact that Rostov can't really see her, but like she's causing him pain. Oh God, you guys, I hate it so much. I hate it so much.
And
everybody please remember that Elizabeth Beckwin was working as a prostitute when Eisenhorn first finds her.
it'd be kind of
Real hard
to have
to
that
work
job
with a prostitute you can't see.
Yep.
Again, it's not. And
so yes, I blame Abnet for this 100%.
100%. And it is now.
Because I think the first time I heard the limiter cuff, and I could be wrong on this, someone else could correct me. Feel free. Just please be nice about it. I'm getting really.
Ravener, wasn't it?
That's what I was going to say. Ravener, because that pariah, he had one, but it was just fine that the kid in the coma could still talk to him, even though he's a pariah.
I'm still pissed about that, but I think, and I said this at the time when I read Ravener, it was a plot device.
Ravener is. Honestly, I believe it was Abnet's downfall.
I would absolutely agree with that. That's where we start to see some of his wacky woohoo stuff. I don't want to deep dive too much on the whole thing. I hated. No, I'm with you. I absolutely hated it. And now that they've
I had to mention it because it was like a visceral reaction with me.
And actually now, damn it. Now I'm going to have to say something else that was my visceral reaction, because if you recall, in the beginning of the book, Serenial is talking about that demon that was able to look at her and kind of talk to her, and it wasn't made to be uncomfortable by her, which demons we've already seen, they're not like crippled by the presence, but all of their nonsense doesn't work on. Like when we go back to Watchers of the Throne, when she sees the bloodthirsters, she's just like, oh, ugh.
Right.
It's more, and they're just like, oh, I guess I'm just gonna have to rip you limb from limb because my fire stuff doesn't work on you. And I understand that, but then in this book, they've established that they've established that demons can, like, oh, this demon could see me. Well, did you have your limiter cuff on? Because again, Mr. Abnet has established that if you have the limiter cuff on, your soul is on, and that is what is going to be referred to from now on as soul on, soul off.
Change approved.
Thank you very much. It drives me crazy. Soul on, soul off, but no soul glow. Not approved. Not a fan of this. Let's talk about the hand, shall we?
Also, the X-Men, when they wear the collars, they talk about how they're in physical pain.
Yes, and that's the whole idea of them. The whole idea of that. Now, I could actually understand that if, like, the limiter cuff was not something that was created by Beckwin, because they established that in the Ravener's books, that Beckwin and her entourage created them so that they could more easily interact with normal humans. Press and X it out. If you're invisible, why bother? Anyways, we need to move on to talk about the hand. Otherwise, we'll be here all night because I've got feelings. I have strong opinions.
But I had another X-Men comment.
No.
Fine.
We're not making the X-Men part of this. Now that we know what the hand is after, do we care? Are we caring about this?
Well, what are they after? The rest of the hand? Which part of the hand? There's two hands, the right or the left.
That is true. With the anatheme,
they got it.
Well, okay, so let's start. Hold on. Let's start with Yang. What do we think of Yang's new position? Is she gonna rock this? Is she gonna be a girl boss? Is she gonna girl boss across the chaos universe?
She's gonna think she is.
Is she gonna have the illusion of freedom? But she's really just the puppet.
She's Augury's slave. I mean,
I feel like with that whole scene, I was like, oh, Pumpkin, you traded one master for another.
So, and considering, we'll call them the left hand because they left.
Hey,
it works.
I love it.
Yep. So what I see happening here since Dawn of Fire takes place way before Dark Imperium, and we know what happens in Dark Imperium, my prediction is, since this is all going to be null anyway, is that the left hand is going to do, I don't know what they're going to do. They're just going to go kill the emperor or what? Or just like, what can this new fun thing do? I don't know. But they're not going to be able to do it because the right hand is going to find them and kill them, and they're going to break the shards, and the shards are going to disappear, and then that's it. We're done.
Are you suggesting that chaos is its own worst enemy?
It's kind of in the name.
True. It's so true.
And the whole time, and Tzeentch will appear going, oh yes, it's all coming together.
Oh yeah. So here's the thing is like,
okay. Or
Erebus
shows up, takes the anathames, like, thank you, I'm going to go return this to the people I stole it from.
I would laugh really hard about that if he's just like, cuz. Do they want to kill Gulliman? Do they want to kill the Emperor? All of the above? None of the above? Do they have some other sorcerers? Is it an insurance plan against Abaddon? Abaddon's hand. Maybe it's his suicide hand. I don't know.
I mean, I don't see Yang and Augury doing anything for Abaddon anymore. They're just like, we're the bosses of chaos now. And either they go after Abaddon and try to kill him, which we know that's not going to happen. They try to go after Gulliman and kill him, which we know that's not going to happen. Even if
they can try, to go after him.
And even if they decide, like, they do a 100 years later thing, and they kill Gulliman. Like, so why did we even bring him back at this point? Like, this is beyond ridiculous.
They can't. I don't think there's any world in which they kill Gulliman. If they try to kill Gulliman, I'm going to be really disappointed because Dark Imperium 3. That's
what I'm saying. If they said 100 years later, and so it's after Godblight.
Well, no. But what I'm saying is that, like, if they try, so beforehand, before the events of the Dark Imperium, if they try to kill him, is that just going to be like every major series end is, and this is how we tried to kill Gulliman? Additionally, you would have thought that Gulliman would have mentioned that. Like, oh man, remember those guys stabbed me with that knife? That was crazy. You know what I mean? Like, this whole thing now, I don't think there's any world in which they go into the future to kill him either. Like, 100 years later, he gets stabbed and killed by it, and that's how this ends. They need to, like, I don't think that's what they're going to do. I think it's going to be one of two things. Either, oh my God, we're going to try and go kill Gulliman, or we're going to try and go kill the Emperor. We've been thwarted before we even got close to them. Or maybe their thwarting could be that, the hand, they all fight and they can't agree and the blade gets broken again and blah. Or it's just going to get kept and put on ice. It's just going to be a magical MacGuffin that's floating out there.
Okay, I got a new prediction here. Because in the book, the way that all these threads were swirling together, and they're all met up at that nadir, all I could think of was, this is like a Guy Ritchie movie. And now I'm thinking the next book will be the Guy Ritchie movie. Because we have the left hand doing whatever they're going to be doing. We have the right hand out to kill them. We have Abaddon out there, who's not going to be thrilled with any of this. And then we have Herrick.
So has to be played by Vinnie Jones. If this is a Guy Ritchie movie, right, Vinnie Jones has to appear.
That's fair. But there's going to be this scene of the Guy Ritchie movie where it all comes together, like a big old beatdown, where it's like they or someone else is going to happen upon it, which is my favorite thing in a Guy Ritchie movie, where they come in afterwards. They're like, oh, dang, what happened here? That's what I think. That's another prediction I have, that they're all going to come together to try to kill one another. So again, it is like all of chaos fighting themselves. And then we're going to have Arios come in, Guy Ritchie style, and be like, shit, what happened here? And then they're going to take the anathame, and it's going to be secreted away by top men.
entirely possible. Arios has to have some sort of purpose. I will say that I am really not invested in his story at all, which makes me
I
feel
am.
bad because I know, and I'm so prone. What a world we're living in. I am so prone to being invested in Ultramarine stories, and I'm not invested in his, but I'm invested in Grail Herrick's.
Well, because that's chaos, and you do like more Trader Marines than I do.
I feel so affronted by that statement. And yet, in this point, I can't argue that with you. But I would like, even in, even in Dead Sky Black Sun, still was rooting more for Uriel and Pausanias than I was for
Well, yeah.
Hanzo. Um,
Well, I'll put it this way. You would have been sad if Arios had died.
yes, I would have been sad. I would have been like, oh, bummer, man. But I wasn't that invested in his story. So I do hope that he gets to have some big, like, haha, I have the thing. Which would be really kind of funny because then Gulliman would probably look at it and be like, oh my god, put that thing back, bro, so help me. I don't know what we do with this.
Okay, now I'm going to do the musical. Put that thing back, or so help me. If anyone's seen Monsters Inc. Anyway, that's what I'm saying. They give it to Gulliman, and he's just like, top men are working on that.
I just don't see a world in which it ends up in like Gulliman's hands. I think that it either gets destroyed, it gets waylaid, or it gets put on a magical shelf, which kind of pisses me off about the fact that it's in there. Like the whole idea, and y'all, the more I think about this, the more I keep going back to that shit Wolf Time book. Let's hear me out. And actually that shit Iron Kingdom book. I kind of feel like the whole point of this series was to discuss like, hey, yeah, there's a big battle we have to go on because we have to take back like large pieces of the Ex Imperium, and we have to stop some of Chaos's bullshit. But we also have to get the Primaris Marines out, and we have to bring in some of these night houses, and we have to do this, and we have to do that. Like a checklist of basically what happens after Gulliman wakes up. Not like the immediate stuff where he Michael Corleone's all the High Lords of Terra. That was beautiful and flawless. Don't touch that. Still one of my favorite books. Anyways, I thought that was really more the purpose, and maybe that was just my misunderstanding of what the whole entire Indomitus Crusade was supposed to be about. But this whole like, oh my god, now it's all moving towards a giant magical MacGuffin. And by the way, of all the books that got tied into on this, I don't really think anything from Wolf Time got tied into this, because what are they going to do with it?
When you mentioned Wolf Time, that immediately triggered me. I was like, wait, I don't think anything from Wolf Time came in here, which Wolf Time should not have been part of the series.
100%. It's an outlier.
I like the book, but it shouldn't have been part of the series. It doesn't fit in with...
Not at all.
Anything else. And I wonder...
Nick Kyme clearly agrees. Who would have been
here? You know, honestly, after Throne of Light, I feel like there was a meeting and whatever they had originally planned got tossed out the window.
I think you're absolutely correct. That's why the Ring of Bucharest just didn't really pan out.
Right, because that original plan didn't really pan out. So I think that these books were supposed to be more standoff, which is why the Wolf Time was there. And then they decided to go in a totally different direction. The
more I think about the Ring of Bucharest, though, the more I think that would have been a compelling MacGuffin. Because it has power for chaos, and it's part of the Age of the Apostasy. Like, you could have had, like, and this is how we're gonna, like, you could have done it a couple of different ways, right? We're going to get the church involved with this, and look how we're going to corrupt some stuff over here, or look at us gain some power over here. We're going to do some crazy stuff, and we're going to take over a few worlds, and big crusade, lots of battles, fine, good, great, grand, love it. But instead they're trying to go for a god killer weapon. Like, the one thing that made me upset about this is as soon as they reveal that that's what they're trying to do with this, I was like, you're not using that. You're not going to use it. Who are you going to use it on? You're going to go stab the Emperor? Really? I don't think so. You're going to go kill Gulliman? Yeah, okay. Are you going to go and kill Abaddon? I'll hold my breath on that one. Right? Like, who are you using this on? And watch next book. They're going to be like, this clever thing. And I'm going to be like, oh, it's overkill.
So like one of the few campaigns I ever read was the one where Gulliman has been, McCragg's honor has been stolen, and he's trapped on it, and it's Cypher and a Grey Knight that comes and saves him and gets him off. And Cypher was just like, you have to take me to your dad. And Gulliman's looking at him. He's like, I know what that sword is on your back, which they never, of course, say what it is. He's like, but he's like, sure. Gets him off the ship. You're not going anywhere near the Emperor with that sword. Not that we didn't know if Cypher was going to kill him, but it's heavily implied that's what Gulliman believed.
Oh.
So we have that. That was actually a very interesting campaign. But it wasn't interesting enough, apparently, to get its own book about it. Instead, we get, bits and pieces told. We get short stories about Frater Matthew on that ship, and we get
the Cypher book, but it doesn't.
The Cypher book, which kind of mentioned it, and then Huron Blackheart, which shows when they stole McCragg's honor, and the great line of "I think they want their ship back." So great. But that was never going to happen. So why do we think that the anatheme is going to seriously? I don't understand this need to bring this weapon back from the Horus Heresy. It did what it was supposed to do, and then Abnett had Erebus break it up into 8 pieces and pass it out, so that they would have magical ways for all person and whatever to cut their way through the universe. There was. No, it's the same thing with the frickin' Fulgurite, right? Horus Heresy, if you guys remember that thing.
Fulgurite shards.
Yeah, so they're like little MacGuffins that they had thrown out. They were fine. It was fine for the Horus Heresy, but some of the things in the Horus Heresy need to be left there, to be totally honest, because I don't want to have a Horus Heresy redux. And when they brought in the Shards of Erebus, that was my first thought. It's like, I like the Horus Heresy. I like it a lot. Obviously, otherwise I wouldn't have dedicated that much time to reading it. Yes, I would have. But I don't want a redux. I don't need the Part 2 Electric Boogaloo. Can we just have where we are now without constantly going to the past? And honestly, it surprises me about Abaddon. Even, of course, I don't know if Abaddon has anything to do with this. He may not, just whatever Tenebris was doing. It surprises me Abaddon would want anything from that era, because he's made it very clear, I am not my father's son. I am doing this completely differently. I have my own way of doing things. I don't need the past to help me with the future.
That's where we stored all of the magical MacGuffins. We stored all of the magical MacGuffins in the Horus Heresy, so we have to bring some of them back. Which actually, this leads really nicely into my next question, because is it possible to wrap up the Dawn of Fire? The next book is coming out.
Well,
is it possible to, and I think there's actually a two-part question here. Is it possible to wrap up all of these threads and all of these plot lines? Or is it possible to wrap up, maybe not all of them have to be wrapped up in the boat. There could be a lot of stuff that they're like, that's out there somewhere. Kesh is traveling around with Helvinter. Do I care? Not particularly, but whatever. All of this stuff is kind of around out there. Does this wrap up the Indomitus Crusade?
All right, so the thing that pisses me off about all of this is that in Dark Imperium, when they talked about the Indomitus Crusade, because remember, Dark Imperium starts when Indomitus Crusade has been over, I thought the whole purpose of the Indomitus Crusade was to figure out a way to close the rift. And I feel like there hasn't been a single book about closing the rift. So either Guy Haley was wrong in Dark Imperium, or we don't have a good definition of what the Indomitus Crusade was. I mean, look at Gav Thorpe's book, Indomitus. It's called...
They were dealing with the Necrons. Remember when the Necrons were a big thing?
Right. But that had nothing to do with the Indomitus Crusade. It was about the Necrons. Like, were they part of the Indomitus Crusade? Like, this has been such a disaster. They never should have decided to retcon how far away Dark Imperium was. I think that was their biggest mistake. You know,
I
is
would agree with that because the
is
one thing that I have to say really quickly, the one thing that I think I saw because you mentioned this or you alluded to this. One of the things I thought saw was some people were like, "Oh, well maybe they're getting this so that they can close the rift." Spoiler alert, they do not. They do not close the rift. And if they're just going to use it to try to close the rift, well, that's nice. I don't really care about your failed attempt to close the rift. Like we okay.
because I'm like a Dark Imperium is what he said. He said he was Thomas Creed was to try to find a way to close the rift, and then at the end of it, it ended up being what we saw with Spear of the Emperor. They needed to figure out how they can even deal with now Imperium Nihilus. And to me, honestly, that tells a much better story about dealing with Imperium Nihilus than going back to all of this. I want more of that, to be totally honest. Like this Dawn of Fire, I was nervous about it to begin with because, again, why do we need to retcon how many years Dark Imperium was when Dark Imperium was so great? And then it's been a mess. It's been an absolute mess since book 3 or 4.
Well, and I would say that book 1, so actually bear with me for a second. Books 1, 2, 3 fit together. And the reason I say that is because if you go back to book 1,
you know that book 3 is Wolf Time, right?
I fucking know.
Okay, just making sure.
Bear with me. I didn't say I liked the book. I said it fits with the first 2 books.
Just wanted to make sure.
That's fair. Because if you recall, the first book, which I think is just called Dawn of Fire,
Avenging Sun.
Avenging Sun by Guy Haley. He does kind of what Horus Rising did, and he throws out all of these little ideas. And the big crux of the idea is that there's a lot of crazy battles going on. Chaos is mobilizing. They feel empowered after the rift has opened up, right? Gulliman is back, and people don't know how they feel about that. All of these new Space Marines are out, right? We now have the Primaris Marines, and people don't really know how they feel about that. The Unnumbered Suns are breaking up.
Oh my God, you're 100% right. I see exactly where you're going with this.
So that was, again, that felt like the point of the Dawn of Fire was
to
be
show
like,
the integration of the Age of Gulliman.
Yes. And to show how this all comes in there. And yes, there are some battles and there's some crazy stuff going on. Like the whole ring of the Gate of Bones. I actually was kind of okay with the idea of this Ring of Bucharest because it's like, hey, we're feeling empowered. Let's go grab some artifacts. Like, let's just mess with the Imperium. Maybe we'll get some extra power here and like give us a boost up with the gods. Like, sure, why not? That even works. And then that 4th book, which was
Throne of Light.
Yeah, Throne of Light tries to kind of continue with that a little bit.
Yeah.
Kind
no,
of.
To me,
but then it's also like, I don't know.
Iron Kingdom is when it fell apart, book 5.
Iron Kingdom, like, look, just from a narrative perspective, I can almost like it too, because that's Gulliman still trying to be like, we got to get back this night world. Like,
okay,
he's
fine,
having
fair.
to reclaim. Where they fall apart is we start mentioning all of these other stupid things. We start mentioning like the shards of Erebus, right? The ruin of Bucharest has now been forgotten. Now we're doing this. Now it's all of the side plots that are feeding into chaos where all of those books fall apart. And yes, I know some savvy person is going to be like, hey, Jen, you bitch nonstop at book 4 that none of these books fit together and make sense. You're right. Random citizen, you're absolutely right. But I'm telling you now, with the benefit of hindsight, had we gotten rid of the overarching, like the stuff with the Ring of Bucharest or with the shards or with what the stupid fucking hand is doing, I don't care about the Hand of Abaddon. If you got rid of all of that, the Age of Gulliman stuff would have worked. What they needed to do was book 1, book 2, crazy battle, am I right? Book 3, the Space Wolves. Book 4, crazy battle, am I right? Book 5, the Dark Angels. Book 6, whoa, this shit's nuts. Book 7, I don't know, the Raven Guard.
Salamanders.
Salamanders.
Nick Kyme. This is your people.
Iron Hands. I don't know. Somebody. We're playing Space Marine 2 with our good friend who is not, he doesn't know anything about Warhammer. That's changing now though. But one day we go to run an operation and I'm looking at his armor and I'm like, why in God's name are you wearing the Iron Hands? I don't know. They looked cool. Oh my God. Anyways, I have all the chapters to pick out and think they look cool. That's what they needed to do with this. Or book 1, book 2's crazy battle, and oh my God, look, chaos is emboldened. Books 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. This is how the Ministorum is adapting to this. This is how some of the more opinionated chapters, like the Space Wolves, right? They're not the only. I know they get a lot of heat and crap and heat for being very opinionated, but they're not the only ones, right? The Dark Angels, in particular, I'm looking at. Just the series could have been so much more for the Age of Guilliman leading up to Dark Imperium of, oh, I'm sorry, were you busy doing a business, doing a leadership? Guess what? Mortarian's going to throw his toys around the room. Thank you for coming to my TED Talk. I'm done. I yield the conch. I yield my time.
I mean, honestly, that was like I really enjoyed that because that summed it up very, very well. Like I never even thought about, because it's been, these books were also supposed to come out like in a couple of years. And the fact that it's taken this long, I don't even remember when the first book came out. Like, my keyboard's too loud. It'll start clacking so loud, so I can't really look it up. But like, just really curious, like when that came out. So it's been also a long time, but I really liked how you summed that up because you're right, because it was kind of like the introduction to how do the Primaris now fit in with the Imperium? How does Guilliman fit in with the Imperium? So in a way,
2020.
Oh shit. Okay. All right. Well, so there was like a pandemic in there that might have slowed things down, but regardless, shit. So the ushering in the Age of Guilliman, I think you're right. Even sorry, that's where I was going with book 5. Him trying to reclaim some of these old allegiances and these contracts, these night houses, totally make that does make sense. And then I don't know, somewhere in there was a meeting and they lost the script, and I don't know why. The only thing I could think of is that maybe someone came in and was like, we need to make this more lore changing because thanks, Abnet, this is what we do now.
Light actually dealt with something because, okay, you guys, we had this conversation the other day and I could not remember what happened in Throne of Light. And then all of a sudden I was like, oh, wait a minute. In Throne of Light, that is the book. Okay, we're gonna ignore all the Corferon stuff for a second, okay? That is the book where Lucerne goes back to meet up with the Black Templars.
Oh, yes.
So that's a good one too, because that's, again, that feeds into that original concept of, oh, hey, by the way, yeah, the Black Templars are nuts. Y'all, the Black Templars are just crazy. Here's how they're reacting.
Unfortunately, he found the craziest of the craziest.
Yeah, that is 100% correct, right? So you have that, which, okay, that's kind of interesting, and you could have kept going on with stuff like that. That's the book, I'm pretty sure, where we start realizing about like the Shards of Erebus and what Corferon is doing, and it's like, God, I just don't care. I thought
that was like, at the end of Iron Kingdom. I don't even
Maybe it is at the end of Iron Kingdom. I don't remember, but that's the problem with this again, is that you could have had, Corferon's messing around, and here you go, and look at how the Black Templars, this is kind of crazy, huh? And you could have even kept Inquisitor Rostov in there. He didn't have to be looking for the Hand of Abaddon, or maybe the Hand of Abaddon just gets relegated to being like a cult. I don't know, like you could have had this like somewhat overarching thing, but the whole idea should have been, this is what Guilliman is dealing with, and this is how this new, like, he doesn't show up and he's like, new toys, and everyone's super excited about it. You know what I mean? Like, there was, and also he wakes up, and it always reminds me whenever I think of Guilliman, I think about that scene from Brain Candy. Yes, Brain Candy. If you haven't seen it, look it up. It's a brilliant movie. But when he's screaming in the boardroom, my empire is crumbled. Like, he wakes up and nothing is where he left it. So this idea that we got to go get that night house. What do you mean she's grieving over her daughter? Okay.
Lots of people are grieving over their kids right now.
Oh my God, that one still pisses me off so bad. But like, you have to get all of these things, like you have to gather all of your toys back into the box, right? Like, I feel like he's the kid cleaning up, and I just really feel like this would have been a lot better had we just focused with that. This whole Shards of Erebus, Ring of Bucharest, Hand of Abaddon, and it's not just because I hate Yang as a character. Like this is not really what this is. This is moving toward okay, you know what this is? Get phase 1 of the Marvel movies, shall we?
Oh, what
Wait.
what are you doing?
Leads up to the Avengers, right?
Mm-hmm.
We have all these really great little stories that lead up to the Avengers. And what happens in the Avengers? Loki tries to kill Earth. Okay. Yeah, that's a big problem, right? The problem with the Marvel movies after that is that now that we've tried to conquer Earth, we have to go bigger, better, and badder, right? Now it's going to be, or I guess that even, he's just trying to take over New York, sort of. I don't know. Anyways, and then it becomes the whole planet with a giant AI, and then we move out to the entire galaxy, then we move out to like basically everything, right? And it gets to the point where it gets so massive that we just don't care. I feel like this is going in that way. If it's just so massive, I just don't care. Oh, we're going to go and get the secret blade. You're not fucking using it, so I don't care. Like,
Well, but
but it's a magical MacGuffin. Yeah.
But that goes into my complaints about comics, even though I still read them. Like, there's a pattern that all superhero comics, okay, not all, but of the major of DC and Marvel, the path that superhero comics go is that you start small. It's the local neighborhood. Then it becomes supervillains. Then it becomes monsters. Then it becomes aliens. And then after aliens, then it becomes the entire galaxy. After that, it becomes alternate dimensions. This is a thing that literally happens in DC and Marvel comics time and time again. And, you know, we talk about, you know, Abnett and his, you know, comic book writing, but I feel like obviously it's not 100% him, but I feel like some of the stuff with the Black Library, with Warhammer 40k, is that's going in that direction. We have to go in that same comic book style direction where we go bigger, better, faster, more, because it was so stagnant for so long, right? We just had the battles, the battle stuff for so long. Well, this was my complaint in Penitent, and I think it stands now. I think it was very bold of them to have Cadia fall and bring back Gollum.
Okay.
That did change everything. It doesn't mean everything has to be a goddamn lore changer.
That's, again, and you and I have talked about that a lot. Not everything has to be a lore changer. Sometimes you can just have a really good scrap. I would say one of the books that I keep mentioning a lot as of late is Leviathan.
Yeah, such a great book.
Sometimes it's okay to just have bolter porn, okay? Like, you can even have things where, like, major things happen, like it's a deep, complicated plot.
Yes, but it doesn't have to be a lore changer.
It doesn't have to be a lore changer. Yeah, a good example of that would be, because it is a little bit more than bolter porn, because there's a lot more going on there. Lords of Silence.
Yeah.
Boom. Right?
Or Rose in Darkness.
Oh my gosh. Yes, absolutely. You can do a lot of really great stuff without it having to be lore changing. And that's one of the things that, yes, comic books do that. And I feel like Dan Abnett is now setting a bad precedent of every book has to be, oh, you thought this was the truth? Sweet summer child. That's not how that ever happened. Karen actually took the kids. Or, you know, again, it's that kind of stuff where I say that very facetiously, and obviously I'm not going to get us on there because we're already like,
oh my God, with you
going
saying
late on this guy. But
I know, but with you saying that just hit me about something else that comics do that I feel like Dan Abnett kind of started with Penitent or Siege of Terra, actually.
Okay.
Comic books, not all. Okay, I'll be specific. DC and Marvel, they like their reboots. They have a big cataclysmic event, and then they have their reboots. And I feel like that's what they're pushing with the Black Library. It's a reboot of what we're doing. Like the Siege of Terra, it's a complete reboot of what you've always known before. The thing with Penitent, that Valdor being the Yellow King, it's a reboot of everything. Like, and it frustrates me and I guess I can't really
It's
complain
true.
because I still
So
read.
what you're saying is that a flashpoint is coming up. This stupid knife is going to end up being the flashpoint. Um, look it up, kids. Um, I, I will be very upset. But the thing is about it is Games Workshop, by and large, I think has been somewhat protective of it. So I don't know that they could absolutely do a reboot. Maybe with the Siege of Terra, but I feel like with the Dawn of Fire in particular,
Well,
they
didn't they
couldn't be
do
like,
that with Warhammer Fantasy?
oh, but that was Games Workshop did that. Games Workshop actually, and that was because they couldn't copyright their things. So they had to rebuild it so they could copyright it. When they killed the old
Like,
world.
I'm not saying it's like an actual reboot, but I feel like the lore, some of the stuff that these authors feel like, well, I have to have my imprint on this and I have to change the lore. So I have to reboot this thinking in this way. I have to reboot this thinking in this way. But why? Just so you can feel important? Because, and I can't wait to get to Saturnine to,
You have a great idea.
to see like how he, changes what happens with the Primarchs. Is that really for the better? Or was it because you wanted your own personal say?
I feel like that's a lot of what that stuff is. But with the Dawn of Fire Crusade, I feel like it's people being like, oh, I have a really great idea. What if? But they didn't stop to be like with the Ring of Bucharest. There's a good example, right? I actually thought that, and I'm gonna keep defending the ring, god damn it. Because even though it does smack a little bit of the One Ring, I actually liked it because that actually felt somewhat clever, right? Of like there's an entire section of the 40k history between 30k and 40k that we have not even touched, and that's the Age of Apostasy.
Right.
And that is actually green fields for their next like major overarching project, right? Now that the Horus Heresy is complete, now they could actually look at like the Age of Apostasy and be like, let's go ahead and play in there's a new sandbox. Like I thought that was actually somewhat clever, right? It wasn't anything from the Horus Heresy, so it didn't feel weird. It was this weird midpoint that you could be like, I can understand how that would be a good MacGuffin. I don't see how they're going to tie this up. I think this this is the way that this series is going to end is not with a bang but a whimper. Like Kesh is either going to go and fulfill her saintly duty and take out the blade, right? And maybe, God willing, she'll take out Hellvinter with her. And one can only dream. I've got dreams.
I really thought Rostov was going to die in this book since he's like so close to death anyway.
Yeah, no, he's not.
But
and like I would actually like the idea of like Rostov and Greyfax are gonna go off on their way. Arios is gonna go back like this champion. Oh, look at me, I'm awesome. But I would like I don't see like I love what Nick Kyme did with this. I really like even if I did not enjoy reading every part of this book, I love that he was like, I'm fixing this.
Yeah,
I'm tying it together.
He did weave it all together very, very well.
He did.
It doesn't mean that it was such a but was it good?
Yeah. Could he have just been like, we've canceled the last 2 books. Like, we could have probably not wrapped this up and everybody would have just been like, eh.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've got feelings. They're multiplying. At the Okay.
So you're going to bring out Grease references. It's probably time to wrap it up.
I think it is, but that's why we need to talk about it is spoopy season, everyone. And because speaking of Bolter porn, hopefully Robbie McNiven tends to deliver on the Bolter porn.
Yes,
and
he does.
It is spoopy season. So our next book, which Carrie can tell you, I demanded in August that we were saving this till the end of October because it's about the Exorcists. Spooky season, Exorcists. I'm all about this. Also, Robbie McNiven is one of my favorite, just solid Black Library authors.
Yeah.
So,
it's true.
I'm really excited for this. Also, you don't really see or hear much about the Exorcists.
I actually have never heard of the Exorcists before. So,
they're in Space Marine 2 as one of the unknown founding chapters.
so they're just another watered down chapter. Got it.
Well, kind of like the Carcharodons.
That's
Like
what I was thinking. Like the Carcharodons or
they have some
the
they have some
astral
history.
claws.
They have some interesting history, I'm guessing, is what. Hopefully, we get to learn a bit about that. I am with you, actually. I did not know about The Exorcist. I'm excited. And again, Robbie McNiven has yet to disappoint us. So,
I mean, he did pretty good with the Carcharodons. The other random, we don't know, watered down chapter.
I actually spent the gold to get all of the Carcharodon stuff, but the problem is, I like to play the Bulwark and the Heavy, and neither of those are giving. They're not giving Carcharodon. Space Marine 2, y'all. Go play it. Our next book, Oaths of Damnation.
I need to
very
play
excited for this.
But
Yes, you do.
But the new expansion for Diablo 4 came out, so.
But the next season or the new expansion stuff for Space Marine 2 is coming out, so.
Eventually.
They're releasing another difficulty above Ruthless, and I'm really excited for that.
Yeah, I've given up playing games for a challenge. I don't have time.
Unfortunately, look, I'm going to make the sexist comment at my own. I play with two men who have to play on the challenge, so I'm not like I would prefer a nice little more of a stroll in the park, but I'm keeping up and I'm doing just fine. Thank you very much. Although I did embarrass the shit out of myself, and I will end this by telling people this charming little story. Like we've been playing for like 2 or 3 weeks, and then they like released an update, and we were playing one night, and all of a sudden I was like, "Whoa! That's the coolest thing with the update." My character just like pulled out his gun and like OK Corral shot this guy, and they were like, and my husband and his friend were like, yeah, you got a perfectly timed dodge. And I was like, no, this is new. No, it's always been like that, Jen. Oh, okay, I just sucked. Gotcha. Thank you. Really embarrassed myself with that one. So, but now I'm living my best life.
I mean, I have beaten Gears of War 3 and Halo 4 on Insanity. Because I was playing with guys.
I will own up to it that if it were up to me, we would be playing on the 3rd difficulty level. But no, we have to play on the 4th. And as soon as this 5th one came out, that's going to be all we play on. It's fine. It's fine. My kid dropped. I can't. You know what? Maybe it's not a man thing though. Either because my kid brought a level 5 through the 4th level difficulty, and she out damaged both of us. So.
It's them kids. Young reflexes, man.
Them goddamn young reflexes. You want to take us out, Carrie?
Yeah, sure will. We'll just talk about video games for another hour, and no one's got time for that. I'll be looking at the stats, and this is where everybody dropped. Okay. Anyway, you've been listening. In case you didn't realize, you've been listening to the Warhammer 40k book club episode regarding the Hand of Abaddon by Nick Kyme. Be sure to join us for next time for Oaths of Damnation by Robbie Mack. We are an unofficial book club and not affiliated with the Black Library or any of its affiliates. You can find both the vidcast and podcast on our website, WH40kbookclub.com. If you like the episode, please like, subscribe, give a review, and all those good things to the vidcast on YouTube. And now the vidcast is on Spotify as well. That's right, people. We are officially on Spotify for video. So you get a podcast and you get video on Spotify. But you can also get the podcast anywhere you get podcasts. And come join our Discord. It's like hot button or hot bed of discussion these days. I'm actually going to have to create a spoilers channel in there because I love you jerks, but you jerks accidentally spoiled the ending to this book before I got there. So I'm going to make a spoilers channel just for you guys. I do love you, but come on. So they have memes. My favorite new thing right now is baby hippo memes for core nights because
my God, those are everything in the world.
I can't get enough of those. I
literally cannot.
All the baby hippo memes as core nights. That's great. So people also show what they're working on as far as painting, and it's just a lot of fun. Please come join us. Our site also has articles about adventures and reading other Warhammer 40k books and short stories outside of the book club books. So please stay a while and read from a crag. And yeah, I think it's time to go to bed. It's late.
It is.
Yeah.
I have a 4:30 a.m. wake up call. So
because she hates herself, people. You heard it here first. Good night, everybody.
Good night, everybody.